Hey, welcome to Secular. Well, folks, we do have a preview of some vice presidential potential picks by President Trump. He was asked the question. Names were given out. I will say before we play the bite from President Trump and the question, one of the biggest cheers came from one of our colleagues here on the Secular broadcast, Tulsi Gabbard. But remember this as well, I noted that it was not until July 15th of 2016 when Donald Trump announced Mike Pence as his nominee. And that was a time when he was Governor Pence and going through a very tough time in Indiana. So a lot of things can change between now and when the VP pick actually happens. But because we're not having much of a primary so far, I do want to play the sound quickly for everybody because I think it's always interesting to see who's on the top of the president's mind and who are the grassroots responding to.
The audience has been asked who they think would be a good choice, and various names came up. One of them was, of course, Vivek Ramaswamy. Yep. He's made a big splash. Ron DeSantis, who's making an appearance today in South Carolina, we just found out. Obviously, Tim Scott, Byron Donalds, and a big presence here for Tulsi Gabbard. Very interesting. And Kristi Noem as well, I should say. Right. Are they all on your short list? And
I mean, he confirmed it right there that they're all on the short list. I will say, that's interesting because one, Kristi Noem probably didn't get it fair there because
it was kind of overshadowed.
Tulsi was still getting applauded, and Kristi Noem did get some. And we've done work for the governor. I think that's great. A great potential pick. I just think it's very interesting who people are reacting to when they hear the name Logan, and it's people who have been. Some have been very close to President Trump, like Kristi Noem, and others like Tulsi Gabbard, who have been new to our side of the movement.
Someone that you may have a hurdle to get over. I'm looking even at comments. There's some people like, well, I like her on your broadcast, but I'm not sure how I feel about her because a lot of people know she ran as a Democrat for president not that long ago, 4 years ago, but has obviously had a massive change, or really you've had the Democratic Party have a massive change, and she's kind of fallen in line with a big new group of voters. So it would not be unlike President Trump, I feel like, to go for someone who's a bit more outside, a bit interesting, brings in a new crop of people, doesn't just activate your own supporters. The question is, does picking someone who's an outsider make people less excited about voting for a Trump presidency? I kind of don't think it does. I think those voters are there so you can find someone who can maybe grab that 1 or 2% that maybe we're going to go with a RFK Jr. or we're going to go with a third party, or maybe just we're disenfranchised by the Biden administration. That may be a good idea. Now, obviously, we also saw some really great words about Tim Scott, another great person, another friend of this show. You do, though, go, does Tim Scott bring anybody new to the table?
Yeah,
I'm not so sure he does. I think that he probably brings in all of your traditional Republicans and your Trump, MAGA kind of Republicans.
I think what he does is kind of like a Mike Pence move. He brings in your social conservatives, people who might be nervous about Trump. You would believe he could certainly govern on day one if necessary. I think also missing from the list, because that was just a list of people that she was talking to there, Governor Sanders has been talked about a lot from Arkansas, J.D. Vance from Ohio, and there's always the unknown.
People are saying Carrie Lake. Where is she? I've seen those in the comments. People are asking a lot of those ones who were...
It kind of depends on where you're doing the forum.
Some of those are the ones, too, who have been advocating more for it. We haven't really heard from President Trump saying those are people. But when it was specifically asked, are these people on your short list? He said, yes, these are all on it. So because he's confirmed a good chunk of people that are there. Who do you think should be the VP candidate?
Some people think champions are bored, that it's a title that requires something only a handful can ever possess.
There are times in our lives that we are called, every one of us, to step up and serve a cause greater than ourselves.
Even when the loudest voices in the room say it's wrong, that it can't be done. It can be a difficult stand, but it's one any of us can make, including you.
You can be the change. You can make that difference.
You can be a champion. We cannot do what we do without you.
By becoming a monthly donor, you can become a champion of life.
A champion of liberty, a champion of freedom.
Please join us. Become an ACLJ champion today. Hey, welcome back to Secchio. We've got Rick Grinnell on our team joining us. He's at CPAC right now in Washington, D.C. And Rick, first just want to go to you on CPAC and kind of like the energy there. This is the main CPAC. What are you feeling? And I would imagine most of the attendees there feel like the Republican primary is about done.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it right on the head. CPAC is very exciting. It's just starting. So tonight, I think the leaders are gathering. Tomorrow is the first day. But usually we have a big debate going on about the presidential election. This one, however, everybody knows it's over.
To get that kind of reaction there, because it's a very different kind of feel. I mean, it's still a lot of excitement, I'm sure, but the just remembering my campaign days there and those straw polls, because everybody would wait for that straw poll to come out, and now it's just kind of a different time. That we're in February, still this early, and feels like the primary is over. But there are some other serious topics I wanted to talk to you about, Rick, because they're being spun both ways, and I think especially the Biden administration trying to spin the Russia mantle onto President Trump once again because of an interview that President Putin did. This was not with Tucker Carlson. This with Russian media. I want to play it for people. Of course, it's dubbed over, but this is what Putin had to say about who he prefers to be the next president of the United States.
When asked by an interviewer who he would like to see win the next US election, Putin replied, Biden. He's the more experienced person. He's predictable. He's a politician of the old formation. But we will work with any US leader who the American people have confidence in.
You know, I think, again, he's playing it carefully too. He knows who the actual president is right now. But I think, Rick, he does want Joe Biden. Again, it's for one word in there specifically, predictable. Which means he can figure out what President Biden's going to do way before he does it. He knows what he will and won't do. He feels like he's got him, and he's got a read on him.
Tradition and known and predictable is exactly what foreign governments want. They don't want surprise. They don't want to not be able to figure out the president. I'm reminded of a conversation that I had with Chancellor Merkel when I was in Berlin as ambassador to Germany. And she said to me, I feel like I just can't figure out Donald Trump. And that scares me because I just don't know what he's going to do next. And I remember, Jordan, thinking to myself, don't smile too much right now. Understand that she's nervous about this moment. But I said to her, well, look, as an American, I've waited my whole life to have a president that is totally unpredictable, that no one can figure out, because then people are respectful of the president. And I think what we're seeing from Putin, he doesn't respect Joe Biden. He knows exactly where Joe Biden is going, and he would rather have the safe, predictable, so that he can make his moves rather than sit around and say, oh gosh, what is the United States going to do under Trump?
Yeah, I mean, I think when that predictable word, when you hear that out of kind of an adversary right now, that's kind of the worst thing you could say about someone that you're saying you wish you could would be the president again. But we're seeing the Biden administration, Rick, saying, oh, that's because, he's trying to hurt Biden. He wants Donald Trump there because he controls Donald Trump. I mean, it's like the exact opposite. I mean, and I know everybody's going to spin everything, but here we have any moment they can seize back on Russia and try to put this on Trump after how many times we've beaten it back and showed us the exact opposite. And that, we didn't see invasions of Ukraine. And I don't think there would have been a full-scale invasion of Ukraine like President Trump says. I agree with him on that because he would have, if he was in office. Again, it looks like they're back to that playbook.
Imagine for a second if Vladimir Putin had said, I prefer Donald Trump. Just imagine what the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, what all of these reporters in Washington, they would have melted down. We would still be seeing front page stories on what this means because Russia wants Trump, and it's Trump, Russia. Look, these people, you cannot win with these types in Washington. They change the rules when they lose. They literally crush dissenting voices. They want everyone to agree. But we should say it often, we should say it loud, and we should say it widely. The fact is that Vladimir Putin wants Joe Biden to be president of the United States.
Yeah, and you're so right to point that out, that the left in the media, mainstream media, if he had said President Trump, they would have taken Putin at his word that he's 100% truthful. He's not trying to play a game. He's not trying to help, Joe Biden at all. So there is no way to win if you're President Trump when it comes to at least the issue specifically of Russia and any of these types of statements come out. But I think, again, when you hear that word predictable, that's the one that really, just kind of just got locked in my mind is that's exactly what is the problem, is that, we draw red lines and we don't necessarily follow up on those red lines, or even when we do, we can't explain what we're exactly doing. And that's what's troubling the American people about Ukraine right now, is we can't really tell us what is this in-game goal. Like, how does this come to an end so people stop getting killed and we stop having to use the resources that we're depleting ourselves of. And again, we just don't get that from the Biden administration or the Biden team. But we also get warnings, Rick, about nuclear weapons in orbit this year by Russia. I mean, it's like a kind of a catch-22, because you don't want to not take Russia seriously. They did invade Ukraine, and there were Republican members concerned about what they're doing in space and whether or not our administration is paying the right attention to where we should on what Russia's doing.
Well, look, Donald Trump created Space Force because we were very concerned about what the Chinese,
by the way,
and Russians and what all these other actors were doing. So Donald Trump created this force in space to be able to protect. I want to go back to the word predictable for a second and just expand upon it, because how that translates when it comes to war is, everybody knows the phrase, a threat of military action is exactly what the United States wants. But actually what the phrase is a credible threat of military action, not just a threat. Of course, the United States has a threat of military action, but if it's not a credible threat, if people don't believe you'll actually do it, or you just may come up with a surprise, if it's a credible threat of military action, then you are unpredictable in how you're going to respond in a crisis. And that is exactly what Putin is talking about. He knows that Donald Trump has a credible threat of military action, and he's unpredictable, and he doesn't like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, when we talk about these world leaders, and there's the shift we've seen in Europe happening right now, Rick, with more conservative leaders as well, who are not working as well with Biden. I want to talk to you, too, about some of the NATO criticism when President Trump is just basically making the case that, do we really want to be the only country that's going to send our brave men and women over to die for countries who aren't even willing to put money into the program, into their own militaries, so they can fight back against attacks on their own countries, and kind of just rethinking NATO in 2024, not saying demolish this unity that we have, but to rethink where it is in 2024.
Look, we have to start, whenever we talk about NATO, we have to always remind people that the entirety of NATO agrees that Putin is a madman and he must be stopped on his offensive behavior. But inherent in that idea is that we have to be unpredictable. We can't just decide to write blank checks and expect there to be a win. Money doesn't always win wars. I would say that if money won wars, that we would have had a very different outcome in Afghanistan and Iraq. We spent, hundreds of billions of dollars trying to win that war over 20 years, those two wars. And what I think the American people are saying is we don't want to get into that with Ukraine. I think that a military response and a military plan is always appropriate, but side by side should be a peace plan. And what I was struck with in the Tucker Carlson interview is that Vladimir Putin said he hasn't spoken to Joe Biden in more than 2 years. Think about that. They're not speaking, but Joe Biden is asking for billions of dollars in U.S. tax dollars to keep funding a war. I think that's crazy.
That is. Rick, we appreciate you joining us from a CPAC, and we'll keep checking in with you and having you part of our team. But yeah, just think about that, folks. 2 years, you're not even trying to talk to Putin about ending this conflict, which is costing Ukrainian lives, Russian lives, and American money. We'll be right back on Secular.
The ACLJ's work at the UN Human Rights Council is extremely important.
We're taking specific, concrete action to protect those that cannot speak out for themselves.
The Human Rights Council is the entity within the United Nations body that is responsible for promoting and protecting all human rights.
Lives are on the line here. This is putting real cases with real people in front of the UN.
As the UN is currently the international stage to address these issues, we want to make sure we are there speaking up for the victims of religious persecution who are often dismissed and overlooked. Ministry of Presence is actually a very effective tool when fighting for justice.
Putting this forward before the Human Rights Council is a very important part of our advocacy for people that really can't speak up for themselves.
You get to name and shame publicly world powers. No other place you can really do that. You can do it on your radio broadcast. That's not our audience, though. These are international actors. You get to go into their home at the UN, where that's their safe space for a lot of these bad actors, and call them out.
Through our European Center for Law and Justice, which is an NGO, we participate in each session, drafting written submissions and delivering oral interventions covering the most egregious human rights and religious liberty violations.
We do it at a very different level.
You've got to push and push.
It's important to be front and center, because what that does is enable us to report firsthand. And what we're doing is getting actual action from this. People released from prison because of our advocacy at these levels.
We are committed to defending religious liberty and human rights worldwide, and we will continue to be actively engaged at the UN Human Rights Council and with its subsidiaries every chance we get. Visit aclj.org for more information.
We have assisted a student at SUNY, one of the schools and colleges in New York, this one in Brooklyn, a Jewish student who wanted to wear an IDF shirt to class after seeing other students wearing pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian shirts. And, of course, this Jewish student with the IDF shirt gets pulled into a dean's office, reprimanded. ACLJ gets involved. We make sure this is handled properly and that shirt is allowed to be worn. And I'm really honored to be joined by the brave Ginny Blass, who we represented in this matter. We're able to handle it really quickly. And Ginny, thanks for joining us today on Seculo to kind of tell your story.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So from what I got from our team is that, you know, we saw the atrocities of October 7th. Our organization is still representing families who have lost loved ones who were taken hostage, who have some who may still be alive. We've also families who and those who were killed on the October 7th attacks inside Israel. But we've also seen the increase kind of anti-Semitism on college campuses all over the United States. And from what I heard from our team is that you were going to class and seeing a lot of your fellow classmates wearing shirts that were pro-Palestinian, even pro-Hamas. Tell people about that.
So yeah, I've been, so right after after October 7th, we came to class, me and my fellow Jewish classmates, and it was like, immediately there was like a tension in the class that we felt, and that was like actually palpable. And like as the weeks went by, a lot of students came in with like keffiyehs and like Palestinian shirts, and they were also coming in with like flags and stickers and pins, and it was just kind of overwhelming for me and for the Jewish students and I to be sitting in the class like that. We're just a small like class. So it was, we see each other every day. Like we always would be like face to face with them. So it was kind of like overwhelming.
Before the October 7th attacks, was there always tension there between these like the Jewish students and some of these students who supported now this the Hamas attacks or what's going on in the Palestinian territories? Was it always high tension, or did this take it to like a next level?
No, there was never any tension. Us and the Jewish students and everyone else in the class, we were pretty close actually. We especially like all the girls and the Muslim girls especially, we related on like a religion level, with like modesty. So we were actually kind of we were actually pretty like close knit. We spoke to them all the time, and it was like a regular day to day, no issues. But then immediately after October 7th, like we walked in, like there was the tension, like I said, very palpable. People like started ignoring us, giving looks, not staring at us. I mean, staring at us. It was just, yeah, it's like they flipped a switch. It was like very surprising for me and the Jewish students.
And so ultimately, you decided in November to do something about it. It was disturbing you and your fellow Jewish students, but you wanted to kind of speak out on your own through a way which was totally viable, which was wearing a T-shirt. I think it's a T-shirt you have on now. It's the kind of typical IDF T-shirt. If people have seen it, yep, you could. If you've been to Israel before or you want to order one online, you can. So you wore it to class. And how quick were you contacted by the dean and the school to come to a meeting?
So actually in November, it wasn't the first time I've worn it. I have worn it before. So I was pretty surprised why, like the second or third time that I wore it, like around November, like I was called in, like I wore it on like a Friday, I believe. And then I guess they didn't want to send emails over the weekend because it's not school. So immediately Monday, the day we got back, I got an email from the dean to come into the office and to speak with him.
And so you in between that time, you contact the ACLJ. We're able to be there on the phone. The dean actually, I mean, were you reprimanded for this?
So in the email, like I was with the rest of the Jewish students when I got in, we were speaking, I told them about the email, and it sounded like the way the email was worded, it sounded as if I was going to get reprimanded for wearing the shirt. But then one of the Jewish students recommended that I should get in touch with the rabbi of the school and also like lawyers that can help me out with this. And so she had a friend who connected me with the ACLJ. So once I had CC'd the ACLJ, like once we started talking and I CC'd the ACLJ with the emails with the dean, it seemed like it wasn't like the meeting wasn't going to be like punitive or him reprimanding me. It seemed like he was just going to speak to me. So I think there was like a change in how he approached it once I CC'd the lawyers.
So we were able to, not have to go to court, you don't have to sue, but it does take people like you, Jenny, who are willing to take the bold move, to wear the shirt, to get the email, to then, you're in college, you shouldn't have to be doing this, having to contact, a rabbi, to contact an attorney, to then go to the dean's office. What ultimately then happened, just to tell people the story, when you talked to the dean?
So when we spoke to the dean, like you said, the ACLG lawyers were on the phone, and we were, and basically he said that based on like the current situation, like everyone should be mindful about everyone in the class, and that ultimately like he can't really tell me what to wear and what not to wear. So he said you could do whatever you want, but just like be aware of your surroundings, right? Like be aware of the people that you have in your class, and like everyone's emotions are very high, like during at that time. And then I said that like the Jewish students weren't really reporting the other students in the classroom for what they were wearing because we didn't think there was a need to. Like when I wore this shirt, them reporting me, I didn't think they would do it because, like I said, I wore it before. So when he said he wasn't aware, he said he would also speak to those other students, and they will come and speak to the class as a whole again as well about what was going on. So it wasn't.
Jenny, let me just say this. We are so proud of you to represent you. We're proud that you put the T-shirt on, and I'm sure you've put the T-shirt back on before. You're wearing it for this interview, and that you're representing a lot of students who are afraid to do that, who I hope see this interview and decide to put that shirt on as well. And know if they need help, they can contact us at aclj.org/help. You're not going to have to go to court. You're not going to get reprimanded, and you're going to be able to wear that shirt if you do want to make that statement. Because, Jenny, it takes people like you, again, to protect all of our rights, and, of course, also to stand up against this anti-Semitism that we're seeing spreading across campuses. So I thank you for taking the time for us. So one more question for you, Jenny, and that's, what would you tell other students that are in your situation right now, all across the country?
So I would tell other students that now is not the time to be scared. I know a lot of people are saying it, but we have an obligation to stand up for the Jewish people. We're not a lot, we're a minority, so the more people that can stand up, the better. Don't be afraid, stand your ground. There's no reason to cower. We're strong, we're doing the right thing. Everyone knows that, and we know that as well. And it's not just on the people in Israel to be dealing with this fight. All Jews around the world have to be standing up, and especially for what they believe in, very important, don't back down, stay strong, basically. We'll get through this.
Absolutely. And we will work to get those students through this as well. And Jenny, we appreciate you joining us, for taking that stand, for being brave, for contacting us at aclj.org/help, for telling your story today on the Secular broadcast. And let me encourage people to share this story with their friends and family. Support the work of the ACLJ at aclj.org. If you need help and you're a student like this, in this situation, go to aclj.org/help. It doesn't cost a thing. We will assist you legally with our best attorneys and get this handled for you.
ACLJ champion reporting for duty, and I say it that way because without you guys, I could not bear the news that I'm hearing. You're fighting for decency worldwide.
Hey, Jordan. Hey, Jay. I just want to let you know that I've supported ACLJ for 30 years and continue today. Thank you for all that you do.
Yes, I'm a small monthly donor for several years. I love that you explain the law according to the Constitution and that you fight for everybody, the big guy and the little guy.
I can't think of how many times the ACLJs were working over Christmas and Thanksgiving and New Year's while the rest of us are on vacation. Is there any other organization in our country that would be fighting for these kinds of things?
This country, I believe, is in an emergency. You've said it, Jay, but we are being attacked in the legal realm. We need brilliant and dedicated attorneys for what ails us. Let's make sure the ACLJ has the armor it needs through our giving to fight for us. Please join our family of supporters. Have the peace of mind to face the new year boldly.